Now, having a baby during the war, especially if you lived in a vulnerable place where there was bombings, you had the option of going into the country to have it. I could have gone to Evesham, but I was at home with my parents and my husband was there. Now, my neighbour, she was expecting a baby the same time as me, and she'd already got 3 children. And she said that she thought she would go away to Evesham to have her baby. It was due about a week or so before mine, and we'd been going down to the clinic together. Of course, the doctor lived at Selly Oak and the clinic was in Selly Oak, so we used to go down to the clinic to be examined. And they were very good down there, actually, but we had to walk. When the baby was due, about a week before the baby was due, off my friend went to Evesham, and I'd arranged to have the midwife and the doctor at home, which I did, and the midwives were very, very good. They did everything, really. It was marvellous, and they'd come and visit you, and then when the baby was due that day, they kept coming in and examining you, and then they informed the doctor, and I had my baby about 20 minutes to 12 at night, Sylvia. She was born during a very heavy storm, a thunderstorm. The thunder and lightning was terrific. I can remember it. But once you'd had the baby, you had to stay in bed for a fortnight. They wouldn't allow you to get up. You had to stay in bed, and you weren't allowed even to put your feet on the floor. You had to have bedpan and everything, and the nurse came in 3 or 4 times a day to attend to you. And my mother was there, of course, to get my meals, and my sister-in-law came as well, and it was quite it was lovely for me lying in bed until the day I had to get up. And the day I got up, oh dear, my legs, they didn't feel like my own at all. It was very, very, it was wrong really to lie in bed all those two whole weeks we had to lie in bed. And of course my neighbour was already home. She'd had her baby a fortnight before me. We used to feed the babies for 9 months. They didn't have any solid food at all, just the breast for 9 months. I think Sylvia was about 8 months, and another neighbour next door but one to us was expecting a baby, and they found that she was going to have twins. Well, she was having it at home. Most of the people that could, if they'd got family there to look after the children and that, they had their babies at home. I can remember the day she was expecting this baby. The doctor's car seemed to be there all the time, and at last they said that she'd had twins, but the one twin had died in the birth. The other twin was a poor, thin little thing, really. They didn't think that one would probably live. The doctor sent them to the hospital because the mother had lost its milk. The sadness of using the one baby, her milk had gone. So they took it to the hospital and they tried to find a food that would suit it, and they couldn't. And it went on for about a week or nearly a fortnight. They tried every kind of baby food and cow's milk and everything. This baby didn't improve at all. So she came to me one day. She said, the sister at the hospital said, did I know of anybody who was nursing a baby who would give me mother's milk? She said, and I thought about you straight away. She said, have you weaned Sylvia? I said, no, I'm just about to do it. I said, she's about eight months now. I said, about a month to wean her off. I said, I'm just... Oh, she said, would you give my baby some milk? And I said, yes, certainly I would. So she said, oh, well, they'll supply all the pump and everything, the bottles and everything that's required, if you could. So I began giving my milk for this other baby. She said that the sister had told her that my milk, of course, was suitable for an 8-month-old baby. and so it would have to be watered down and diluted so that it would be suitable for a newborn baby. I didn't know that until then. I didn't think there was any difference, but there must be. I mean, it's common sense, really. Anyway, I fed this baby for about 4 months after I'd weaned my baby. So that was a bit what I thought of the war effort. I thought that was a bit of extra war effort that I was putting in. But I didn't mind, and it was no trouble to me, and I had plenty of milk, so I was only too pleased that this other little baby improved straight away, and they brought it home after 4 months. And it was a beautiful baby by then. And of course, after the war, when we began, she left and I left in that area. And I didn't see her again. After the little ones were about 4 or 5 years old, I didn't see her again for some years. And I happened to meet this neighbour, and she said to me, "Oh," she said, "I often think about you, Mrs. Barber." She said, "What we would have done without you, I do not know." She said, "I would have lost that baby. I know I would." She said, "Oh, and if you could see him now, he's taller than me." She said, "Oh, he's a great big strapping lad." He was about 16. And she said, "He's done ever so well at school. He's wonderful. I wish you could see him." She said, "He's really one. There's only one thing," she said. "He's a disbeliever." So that gave me quite a bit of a knock, really. I was so, yes, she said, "He doesn't believe in God." She said, "Now you know how he was brought up." And now they were very Christian people. They went to church 3 times a day. And the father was an organist. And she said from the time he was 14, he suddenly decided that he was not going anymore. And he became an atheist. And she said, for 12 months we persevered with him. We persuaded him and tried all we know now. But every Sunday there was a row, and it went on all day because he didn't want to go. So in the finish, my husband and I said, well, it's no good going on like this. Let him go his own way. We've done whatever we could for him. So she said, "But he's a good lad." She said, "He's worked hard at school. He's never done anything wrong as far as we know. It's just that he just says he just doesn't believe." But I was terribly upset about that. I thought, to think that I helped, God did so much for that little boy. And I thought, how could he be like that? But I haven't seen them since. He may have altered by now. He's probably a father with several children of his own. But I thought about it an awful lot. I did wish that she had told me that he'd gone like that, because he was such a wonderful looking little boy as well. But that's one of the things that happened during the war. Having a baby was very... Now, I was lucky because I'd already got one baby, and I'd got my pram, and my neighbour had got her pram too. But for anybody who had a new baby, there were no prams about. We tried to get a pushchair for Pat, but there were no pushchairs about. You couldn't buy a pushchair anywhere unless you could get a second-hand one. It was very difficult, really, trying to push the one baby in the pram. And my Pat was 3, you see, and my husband put a plank across it, and they were high prams in those days, and she would sit on this plank across, and I'd push her about. For people that had got several children, it was very difficult, really, especially if you couldn't find anybody to mind the children. You see, my neighbour's husband was at the war, and she was at home with these 4 children then. Nobody to do anything, really. She had to do the best she could. We used to help her out whenever it was possible, of course. But having a baby wasn't like today, where you just went into the hospital and everything was all arranged and it was all there. You'd got to really get on with it.